come on, we all love golden light, the soft skin tones, the warm colors. It's just amazing to shoot in these conditions, but most of the time the reality sadly looks quite a bit different, and more often than not, we have gray, dull, boring, overcast days. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's video, how to shoot in dull, overcast, boring light and get the best out of it and take great photos despite these conditions. So I would say without further ado, let's jump right into it. So just in order to bring everyone on the same page, let's just address the key issue we have when it comes to dull light, which is that it's really hard to make our subject stand out. And this is because everything is lit the same way. Your subject is lit as the background. So for the viewer, it can be really hard to identify what you as a photographer even want to tell them. So the key goal of today's video is to figure out how we can make our subject stand out even when the light is dull. And a great photo has three key ingredients: a strong subject, the good use of the environment to support it, and great light. But since we do not have good light, let's just focus on the first two. First, we're going to have a look at how to enhance our subject, and then we'll explore how to use the environment to support it even without great lighting. And make sure to stay till the end, because then I'm going to tell you about a few more out-of-the-box approaches that you can use to create amazing art in dull light using a few more creative techniques. So before we get to a few more advanced techniques, let's actually start with a few subject-centric approaches that are very easy to implement. And the first one is that if your subject does not stand out, it might not be interesting enough. So make sure to have an interesting subject. But how can we achieve that? And the best way to make sure that our subject is the most eye-catching possible is to look for specific features they wear or carry with them. So, for instance, look for a person with a hat, because a person with a hat is more interesting than a person without a hat. Or look for a person with a bike, because a person with a bike is more interesting than a person without a bike. Additionally, look maybe for a person with an umbrella, because a person with an umbrella is nicer than a person without an umbrella. The second subject-centric advice is to look for a pop of color, because if your subject is gray or dressed in dark clothes in general, in a gray, dark day, it's probably very unlikely that your subject is going to stand out, because it's literally in the same tone as the rest of the scene. The solution is very simple. Look for a pop of colors. Look for a person dressed in something red or in something yellow. For instance, look for yellow coats. Or recently I've been on a mission to look only for red umbrellas in the rain, also dull overcast day. And guess what? I've actually found 3 different people with red umbrellas that really just stand out of the gray overcast day because the color of the umbrella was so eye-catching. So make sure to look for color contrast, because it's the best way to make your subject stand out when everything around your subject is totally boring. And before we move to environment-centric approaches, just a quick note on gear. I recommend you shoot on something that's a bit tighter in terms of field of view, like a 50mm full-frame equivalent lens or even an 85mm full-frame equivalent lens. Because wider lenses in dull light are really challenging to use, because it means that there is more in the frame, so more potential to include boring stuff. And usually it also means that your subject is smaller in the frame, which makes it harder for the viewer to identify what your subject is. Additionally, you might also consider shooting your lens at wider apertures like f2 or f2.8 for instance, to provide a slight emphasis on your subject and to blur out distractions that might be in the background. Usually I'm not that big of a fan for it, but I think on dull grey days you can actually pull it off. And even though everything is dull and everything is roughly lit the same, there is in fact environments in which you can make your subject stand out and look for contrast. So first of all, have a look out for bright walls. Have, for instance, a look at this white wall here, and I'm actually just here waiting for a subject to pass through, preferably a darker subject, because it's going to create more contrast between the white wall and the subject. And there is the result, and you can see that the viewer's eye is immediately drawn towards this contrast. So look for contrast. Additionally, you can actually also use the sky as your bright surface, and you're just gonna use it to make your subject stand out by, for instance, shooting up. In this case, for instance, I'm using the bridge and I'm standing slightly below the bridge and shooting up, and I'm just waiting for a person to walk through. And as you can see, despite the sky being overcast, being dull and boring, you can see that it's still our brightest light source that we can use to our advantage. And in this case, it actually worked out super well, and our subject is very clearly recognizable. And while these examples all show the dark subject relative to a bright background, consider this scene here where the opposite is happening. Here we have a bright subject lit by the overcast sun, but it's standing out because the background is this dark tunnel creating contrast. Talking about tunnels, we can also go inside the tunnel and shoot toward the bright exit of it. Again, we wait for a subject, and the brightness difference gives you the contrast we like and will make our subject stand out. And as promised at the beginning of the video, now a few more creative approaches to make your subject stand out in dull light. The first creative technique is to shoot longer exposures to bring in some more abstractions or to create movement in your scene. So my favorite technique, for instance, is the panning shot. And what you basically do is that you use a slow shutter speed, usually like 1/30th of a second or 1/15th of a second, and you pan with a moving subject like a bike, for instance, and you go with it. And now as you adjust the speed of you panning the camera to the speed of the biker, you can see that it creates motion, and that now your background creates these horizontal light trails while your subject stays reasonably sharp. And from a technical point of view, you need about a shutter speed of 1/15th of a second, which during a day, especially overcast days, should be possible to achieve without overexposing your photo, but it might require you to stop down the aperture to f8, f11 or even f16. And in this case, also do not bother too much about introducing diffraction into your shot by stopping down to f16 or f22, because it's all about the creative effect. And this actually also leads me to the second long exposure idea that you can use in dull light, which is that you're just going to look for a static subject or a subject that does not move, and you're going to look for moving subjects moving either in front of your subject or in the back of your subject. And what this creates is this really nice juxtaposition between the static subject and these light trails of cars going in front, creating this interesting effect between movement and immobility. And regarding shutter speed, here again you will want to choose a very slow shutter speed, usually ideally even up to 1/8th of a second, 1/15th of a second will also do it depending on how fast your subject is. And again, if you do not reach these shutter speeds without overexposing your scene, please consider again stopping down to f16 or f22, or as in the case of my X106 for instance, I just enabled the ND filter, blocking off the excessive light, allowing me to achieve these relatively long shutter speeds even in comparatively bright conditions. And now let's get to the second technique to think a bit outside of the box, which is to shoot in black and white. And what this allows you to do is to remove all color distractions from your scene. And you usually have like this bluish tint in your dull gray photos, and that you can completely eliminate by shooting in black and white. Additionally, when you later edit these black and white photos, you can emphasize the contrast in your scene and make your subject stand out more using a few clever masks. And the reason why this works is because we humans, we see the world in color, and in color, we might immediately be thrown off by exaggerated color that might look unrealistic. But when we shoot in black and white, we have no idea what this scene looks like because we don't see in black and white. So we can also not catch that what we have done in black and white might not look very realistic. So use your entire creativity and shoot in black and white, because it's gonna lead you to really good results when the light is dull. Let's get to the final advice on how to shoot in dull light, which is to not shoot in dull light at all. And no, I'm not telling you to stay home, I'm just telling you to wait. Because yes, we cannot influence what the weather is going to be like on the day you're going out to shoot. It might be overcast and you cannot just tell the sky to clear up and give you a lovely sunset. But what is going to eventually kick in, and it's unavoidable, is night. At some point it's going to get dark. And use the darkness to your advantage, because as it gets dark, all the city lights turn on again, like shop windows and lanterns, and there will be so much artificial light that you can use to your advantage to make your subject stand out. And then it also doesn't really matter anymore whether there is clouds in the sky or not. And if you're interested in how to read the light at night, then I invite you to check out this video up here, in which I tell you all about light reading and how to make your subject stand out when it's dark. And with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And I know there was a lot of stuff, but I hope that you could take away at least a few bites of knowledge. And well, I hopefully see you in next week's video. Bye.